Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Hello.
Oh, nice. Good call.
Well,
good.
very excited to be here with y'all today. I'm Amanda Crawford, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director of the Texas Department of Information Resources, and also as the Chief Information Officer for the state of Texas. So excited to be here today with y'all talking about cybersecurity. So as it turns out, October is actually Cybersecurity Awareness Month, but as far as I'm concerned, and I think the folks on this panel would agree, every month should be Cybersecurity Awareness Month, because the threats continue, they get more sophisticated, and our technology backbone increases more and more. Technology truly powers the business of government, and the business of business. And I think you all know this very much, certainly with your own small businesses, how important and integral those technology pieces are to your success. Cybersecurity is something that should be top of mind at all times. And so we're here today to give you some perspectives on what we see, and some ways that you can help protect yourselves and your businesses. We'd like to say that cybersecurity is a team sport, and I truly think that's absolutely true. And it takes all of us from working together, whether from those of us that are operating in government to organizations that sell cybersecurity tools. We have folks in the insurance industry, but also the end users. It takes all of us working together and being vigilant to be able to stay on top of this issue. So I'm thrilled to moderate this fantastic panel today. I'm going to let the folks here quickly introduce themselves, and then we're going to dive into some questions for the panel, and then we want to leave some time for y'all to ask some of your burning cyber questions for us at the end. Okay.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. My name is Charlie Dickey. I'm the agency owner of Dickey Insurance Solutions. Can I go a little bit more in depth?
Go for it.
Okay, sorry about that. We are a family-owned and operated insurance agency serving our great state of Texas. We are located in the Woodlands, San Antonio, as well as Austin. I'm the oldest of 5 Dickey boys, and I'm very, very proud to be able to say that we all work with each other in one ecosystem. My mom is an entrepreneur, so we were raised, from a small business atmosphere. My wife and I own Dickey Insurance Solutions, so I'm really here just to really help spread awareness, explain to you really the fiduciary responsibility that we have as insurance agents to make sure that you have a fortified insurance portfolio. Insurance is often viewed as a commodity just with its affiliation with price, but in reality, the most expensive insurance policy is one that you're, ultimately find out that you're not covered. So really just here to kind of spread that awareness and really talk about the rising risks of cyber and really cybercrime.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, or good morning, rather. It's a beautiful day today. Thank you for letting me be here today. My name is Todd Vasilou. I'm with the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. It's kind of a mouthful, but we're in the Department of Homeland Security. And I act as a liaison and a conduit to no-cost resources and services that CISA provides, cybersecurity resources and services that CISA provides out to small and medium-sized businesses, local governments, Fortune 500 companies, et cetera. We basically provide these resources to shore up our critical infrastructure. We also provide workshops, assessments, and other types of platforms such as tabletop exercises and things. But we'll get to that in a moment. But glad to be here, and thank you for your time.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Rainosek. Until about a month ago, I was the Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Texas, working for Amanda. I've decided to hang it up, and so I'm staying on for a while as a strategic cyber advisor to help my successor dig into the role, because it's quite a big job. So, happy to be here, and thank you.
So Nancy's modest, but I'm going to brag on her a little bit. Yes, as Nancy has served for 7 years as the Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Texas. That's a big job. And I'm amazed we got her for 7 years, because it's tiring, as you can imagine, being vigilant 24/7, 365. Texas, for all of you in the room, I'm certainly proud of Texas's record, and you all as Texans should be as well in what we're doing as a state. Nancy's led many tremendous initiatives, including one where Texas is the only state to have established regional security operations centers in partnerships with Texas public universities. And those RSOCs, as we call them, provide cybersecurity services to local governments. They're funded through the legislature. This was an idea of Nancy's. Then we partnered with the legislature and the governor's office to make it a reality. And so we have our first one at Angelo State University out in West Texas, serving the water districts, school districts, cities and counties out there. We are currently deploying one at UT Austin, and then UT Rio Grande Valley. I saw y'all with a booth in the back. And we have a ribbon cutting at RGV actually next month. And then we're going to request 4 more. The key thing on that, and then I'm going to get to the questions because it ain't bragging if it's true, and this is something everyone should know about, is one of the requirements for those universities to get the funding to do this is they have to employ students in those RSOCs. So we are training up the cybersecurity professionals of the future to be able to not only then go back to work in government, work for businesses like yours, and really help to secure not only our state, but our nation. So we're really excited and proud of this program that we've done, and that's in large part to Nancy. So I'm very excited about that. Okay. All right, folks, well, we hear about cyber attacks happening almost every day. So I would like to hear from y'all, and I think go ahead and start with Todd, about what you're seeing in this realm, who the attackers are, what are they after, and how are they successful?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of, it's coming from a variety of different areas, okay? And when we talk about these threats, it's not just one particular, one criminal or nation state, it's a combination. So we're seeing a lot of nation state presence out there with cybersecurity, affecting cybersecurity from governments such as China, North Korea, Russia, and Iran. It's been in the news quite a bit recently. If you've been paying attention, there's a lot of good stuff, well, I shouldn't say good stuff out there, but there's a lot of information out there that's kind of pointing to that direction that we're all kind of affected. No one's really safe. And back in the day, it used to kind of be, clear defense contractors, the U.S. government, but today, we're finding that data is the new gold, if you will, right? So data is worth its weight in gold, and these adversaries, whether they're nation state or criminal actors, are going after your data. Mm-hmm. And there's many different reasons behind that. There's many different motives behind that. But at the end of the day, we're all subject to this threat, okay? We're not safe. Whether you're a small business and you think you might not be targeted, well, you are, just like the Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 companies. Just like the federal government, we're all kind of victims, if you will, potential victims, if you will, to these cyber attacks. A lot of what we're seeing today is ransomware. Okay, I know that we've probably heard this term before here in the room. It has become a very prolific problem throughout our critical infrastructure and throughout our nation as a whole. We've seen this develop from what used to be a very specialized technical area into a very easily accessible tool now for pretty much anybody to utilize. So ransomware as a service has become notable in the past few years, where anybody with the right kind of know-how can go out on the dark web and purchase ransomware software and kind of learn the ins and outs of this, from your high school student to your college student to anybody really can figure this out and conduct ransomware campaigns. So we have seen a huge uptick in that. Secondly, we're seeing a lot of social engineering attacks, okay? Now social engineering kind of is one big umbrella term, but when I talk about social engineering, we're talking about email, right? So that is the gateway to a lot of the threats that we face today. Anything that you really need to be concerned about, I get asked the question, well, what are the threats? Who's targeting us? What should we look out for? Well, it really starts with you. It starts with the owners and operators. It starts with your business model. It starts with your policies, more importantly, such as your cybersecurity policies that dictate how you kind of control your environment there, because email has become, just a big problem where people are spearphished. They receive an email that looks legitimate, and with AI technology kind of coming into the fold today, those emails are looking a little more official. They're looking a little more, believable, if you will, and it entices people to click on those, links or an attachment and open those things up, inevitably dropping some sort of malicious binary into your system, which then either ends up into a cyber event or incident, or into a ransomware incident. To kind of sum it up, that's really what we're seeing. Ransomware has become a huge issue. We're also seeing from the owner-operator standpoint, user training and awareness really has taken a hit. And what I mean by that is the end users, right? They're like I discussed with email. They're kind of the gateway to your environment. They're the gateway to your company. And if you aren't training your end users and the staff members on how to, address and identify threats that are coming through email or even through text messages and things of that nature, you're really doing yourself a disservice because that's one huge vulnerability that we all face.
Thank you, Todd. And I don't know if how many of y'all in the room, by show of hands, did you know there was such a thing as ransomware as a service that you could buy? Right, they actually have help desks to help the criminals deploy the ransomware. And I mean, that's the level that we're dealing with when we're talking about this. So Todd gave us a real comprehensive view on that. And I don't know, Nancy or Charlie, if you had anything to add or, okay.
I think really the only thing I can, Todd nailed it pretty much everything there, but really that's where the insurance policy comes into play because that's what restores you guys financially in the event of a data breach, a ransomware. Ransomware, since Todd basically nailed everything, the average ransom payment in 2024 so far is $2.73 million. And like he said, they're not just going after the Fortune 500 companies, they're going after businesses that generate revenue from $1 million up to $25 million, which is the majority of us in here. And it really is just as simple as an email. There's first-party coverage that protects you directly if you were the one that suffered that direct hit, but also third-party. So if you're using a third-party vendor, like with us, if anybody reaches out to us to inquire about an insurance quote, we use a software called Canopy Connect where you can log into your current provider and it automatically uploads to us your current declarations pages so we can perform, the main part of our job, which is to help you understand how you're protected, and that way we can craft up solutions to tailor to that moving forward. Well, if that software has a breach and now my customers are impacted, that's where the third-party protection comes into play. So there's just a variety of ways just to make sure that you're protected, and it's really not that expensive in terms of a cost perspective to actually put that into your portfolio if you have a business owner's policy or things of that nature.
And that insurance really comes into play when you're talking about data exfiltration as well, right? Mm-hmm. So when your customers or your employees, and maybe you suffered an event or an intrusion of some sort, and data is exfiltrated mm-hmm. and then sold on the dark web, what type of, you're in crisis mode at this point, right? So you're turning to your insurance provider to help with that. There are things in place with insurance providers to assist with that sort of issue. But it's good to have cyber insurance. That's a great thing to have within your organization. Once more, within your policies that you write from the top down in your organization.
So Nancy, do you want to talk a little bit about, well, one, what some of the security risks are that could affect a small business, and then maybe also get a little bit into what steps would you take if you were going to lower your cybersecurity risks?
Yeah, so we talked about ransomware, and I can talk a little bit more about that. In August of 2019, we had an incident that impacted 23 local governments, and they were just turned off. All their data, their machines were encrypted, mm-hmm. and they couldn't really do work then. And when a local government gets hit with ransomware, it can impact a lot of things. Think about all the things that you work with the local government, like couldn't sell property because they couldn't get a title search, couldn't get married. The police can't pull people over because they're required to have video of their traffic stops, which it's not a bad thing really, but they couldn't download the videos off of their cars because those machines weren't available. And kind of behind that, though, there was a company that was a managed service provider. It was 3 people, a guy, his wife, and a helper. And they were providing that service to these local governments. And it pretty much decimated their business because they were the linkage that got into all these places. So, there's that big risk of, you could lose your business if you have something that's really bad. And, I mean, show of hands, how many people here have a lot of pertinent company information on a computer? Yeah. So if you lost that, what would happen? And then think about what you have to do to restore that. And when Mandy says, you know, what are things you would do? And I might say, well, do a risk assessment. You guys are going, well, what the heck is a risk assessment? You know, Charlie knows because he does insurance. But, you know, just think about all the things that happen with your computers and how some kind of event, be it gets encrypted and held for ransom, be it your house catches on fire. I mean, that's not cybersecurity, but there's a piece of it that is. But think about all the things that could go wrong with your business if you lost that computer or if you lost access to that computer. Or think about your customers and if their data was all at once exposed to the dark web to the point where, you know, perhaps you've got some personally identifiable information that could impact your customers. Think about how that would have an impact. And so when you kind of go there, then you've got to think about, okay, how do I protect that? And, you know, whether it's a small machine, one machine at your house that you're working out of, or whether, you know, you've got servers and a room that really provides that. And so that's, you know, when you think about what you need to do, I think about risk. The other thing I think about is protections and things like firewalls or endpoint detection and response. And as an individual, I can't buy that, but you can buy it as a business. And so that's a couple of key things to think about. You know, it was a long time ago. It was a Saturday morning. I walk into my kitchen and my personal laptop's sitting there. And the little mouse is moving on the screen, going through pictures on my computer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And I found the solution. The kid next door somehow he guessed my Wi-Fi password.
It happens to the best of us.
Yes, he did. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to hang up my CISA card. You know, but you know, at the time, and this actually was before I was at DIR, I didn't think about, I hook into Spectrum, you know, my cable provider, you know, that's my internet provider. Well, they don't have a firewall that's protecting Nancy Rainosek at her house. They just provide the internet, and it's up to me to have those protections in place, be it through software on my machine or be it through a firewall. And you better believe when that happened, I put in a firewall at my house. And, you know, I put in this password on my Wi-Fi that I can't even remember. You know, so think about those kind of things because it's not necessarily some dude in Russia trying to make some money. You know, it could be the high school kid next door that's just trying to have some fun.
Right. No, and I think so, you know, great lessons, great practical things. So a few things that I'm hearing from that are tools, exploring different tools, you know, firewalls, VPNs, look at endpoint detection and response type software, which is kind of, think of that as next-gen antivirus. So if you think of your standard antivirus that many of us remember when you used to go in and buy a box off of a store shelf and put it in, but you know, subscription stuff. And it used to be antivirus would look for things if a virus or a malware was wearing a name tag and it said, hi, my name is malware. And then it would block that. Well, now the viruses and the malware are far more sophisticated and they get in there. And so endpoint detection and response actually looks for behaviors. And it looks for things like that and sort of the calling cards of malware to be able to spot it and stop it. And so there's tools like that. Nancy's point about if you have a managed service provider, which I met many of you in the room do for your IT services, and that's perfectly fine, check them out. Check their credentials. Make sure you know, have you read your contract about the liabilities and protections there? And then to Nancy's point, look at go through what would you have to do if you didn't have your computer. Practice what you would do to be offline. I think that's a great exercise for everyone in the room, to how could you still conduct your business if you could not access any of those technologies. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, and I'd love to hear from the other two folks on some ideas of tools. We want to try to be vendor agnostic when it comes to some of those tools, certainly from up here, but you know, the types and general products of that. But then I'd also like to hear, what should you do? And I don't even, you know, I also want to be clear that there's no fault when folks are impacted by an event. We don't try to victim blame at all. It's a crime. You know, we don't fault people for having, you know, their purse stolen. We're not going to fault people for doing that. We're gonna talk about the bad guys and what they do. So, I don't know, Charlie, you want to start? Maybe if there's some tools out there or things like that that you see in your practice, and then you know what folks should do, and then we'll hand it off to Todd on that as well.
Yeah, so the most common thing is like when you think like your home and auto, there's not a lot of exclusions that are built in. Okay, so those are all risk policy forms where you know the consumer really doesn't have to worry about not being covered for the majority of risks. Well, commercial insurance is the complete opposite. So they come front loaded with exclusions. So if you are just uneducated or didn't have that comprehensive review, or you're buying a commercial insurance policy online, a lot of the times you're just severely exposed. Cyber policies, they can be endorsed on specific policies on commercial, but sometimes based on the revenue, you have to have an entire different policy form that's catered and built simply for that. And if you don't have the multi-factor authentications, if you don't have password managers, if your staff is not trained on cyber, or you know just not taking the proactive approaches of what they're searching for, Googling on their work computers, your entire company could 100% be vulnerable to mainly the ransomware, I think is the biggest one, but also just a data breach in general. You're gonna lose income, right? That's claimable, and cyber policies will respond to that. But like I said, just taking those proactive approaches of sitting down and having that consultation, that's where, put all that faith in us. That's our job to provide you with that comprehensive review and try to navigate through the complexities of what that declaration page is really articulating. It's not your job to be able to regurgitate that. That's really where we come in and kind of help, with that education process.
And Charlie hit the nail on the head there with multi-factor authentication, right? And using a password manager or a password vault to secure your passwords, because and also don't reuse passwords. I know we all fall victim to that. I know I've done that before because there's so many passwords we have to remember and utilize. But try to have unique passwords for your different devices and your different services that you have, and then store those passwords in a password manager, which you can easily find by doing an open search, Google search or whatever. And that way you can keep your passwords secure, and if someone, no one can essentially hack your system and get your passwords, so they're safe there. But multi-factor authentication, having some, two types of identification there to log into a system or to perform an action is very essential. You don't want your username and password because that is something that is very easily hackable these days, and you want to ensure your password lengths are considerable. Right, so the NIST cybersecurity framework recommends a minimum character of 15, or minimum of 15 characters in your password. So you want, I know it sounds like a lot, to some of you are like, that's a lot of characters there. But you want to at least have a minimum of 15 characters in your password to make it that much harder for those adversaries and those threat actors and those hackers to try to compromise your password. Some other things that you want, so we talked about email earlier, right? So email security is paramount. That is like I said before, is the gateway for a lot of your companies, and it's your end users, your staff are utilizing that on a day-to-day basis. You want to set controls within your email environment. You want to be able to ensure that emails sent from external parties are vetted, and you want to ensure that attachments or URLs that are attached to those emails are maybe blocked or quarantined. Or maybe you don't even allow certain folks in your staff to have receive external emails with attachments or links within them embedded in them. And there's a bunch of assortments of protocols and services you can use out there. I'm not allowed to recommend any of those. But like I said before, a quick search within Google or any other search application, you can find a lot of good resources out there for application control protection within your email environment.
So, great tips. Multi-factor authentication. Who doesn't get frustrated? And I'm one of those when you're like, oh, I got to enter in the code because you can't get right in. We all do. But it's so important. I mean, truly, I mean, when you look at the statistics about what multi-factor authentication can do to prevent fraud, it's something like 95-ish%. I mean, it truly is tremendous. Personal story, I had one just last weekend. I got a lot of my personal emails from my Microsoft Outlook account, and it kept sending the code. You requested a code for your email, and it kept sending me the code like 15 times in a minute. That means someone was trying to get into my Microsoft Outlook account, but the code was coming to me because I had established the password, and they were not able to do so. So those sorts of things are very helpful to do. The password managers, obviously. I will also say, you know, keep your eyes on sort of on the news and the trends. I think we're going to see more and more things going passwordless. That's certainly, you know, a trend going forward. So there are different tools, tokenless type things that you can have for security that will validate that you are who you say you are, kind of moving away from passwords in the future. And if it helps, Nancy taught me this one a while ago, go with a passphrase. If you're trying to get that longer password, use a passphrase. Multiple words, you know, strung together, throw some numbers in there and a couple special characters, and it can really help you if you just have a difficulty coming up with something like that. So
Yeah, I make an at instead of an A, I make it an at.
Good. Keep going. What else do you do for your password?
I'm not telling you everything.
I know.
I want to tell one other story on this. We had a company that they were providing services to law enforcement. And it was like attending conferences and things like that. And their data got stolen. And in there were like law enforcement officers' home addresses, the names of their family members, just because of how this company worked. It included all of this stuff that, and even informant names, and that's really dangerous. And you know, that's the kind of situation. And it was a small business, and we got on a call with the guy that ran the business, and we said, well, are you going to hire a CISO? And his response was, I'm not going to pay somebody $100,000 a year to follow me around and tell me what to do. And, you know, of course, you know, that wasn't a very good answer. But it didn't have to cost $100,000 because there are virtual CISOs that you can contract with that will come in and help you make sure that your infrastructure is secure. And so, you know, if you ever, you know, really want to approach this and think you've hit your limit on what you think you know about cybersecurity, that's another option for you. And it doesn't have to cost you 6 figures to make that happen.
No, you all have enough on your plates. You don't need to be experts in cybersecurity as well. You just need to be aware. So Nancy brought up a good thing, and I want to do really kind of a quick lightning round on that, and then would love to open it up for any questions that we have. But so that happened to that business, and the data was exfiltrated or put out there. Talk about reporting requirements and things like that some small businesses should be, or any businesses should be aware of when reporting a cyber attack. Who'd like to tackle that?
Texas Business and Commerce Code requires that you first, if it's got personally identifiable information, that you notify the people that were impacted, and that you notify the credit bureaus. And if you have more than 250 impacted, 250 more people impacted, you have to notify the Office of Attorney General. So there are consequences. I'm not saying it's monetary, but when your name gets on that list, the press keeps an eye on it. So, you know, there are consequences.
Right. And sadly, probably everyone in this room has been the recipient of at least one of those letters from a company that you've done business with that's told you that you've been part of some sort of data breach or data leak. All right, before we open it up for questions, is there anything that you all would like to add?
We could talk
Parting
about
words.
business email compromise.
Sure.
I'm sure that's a big one too. So we've seen that quite a bit as well. So I'm not quite sure if anybody knows what that is, but it's when, and so we're going to get in the realm of your third-party vendors here. And I know a lot of us, right, we're not doing this on our own. We have a lot of vendors we work with, what we call external dependencies at CISA, that provide you services, whether it's your telecommunications provider, your internet services provider, or any of those folks. But business email compromise is when your vendors are compromised, okay? You may not have a problem in your environment, but your vendor does. And maybe their email is compromised. This happens quite a bit. And I actually worked, not worked a case, but I worked with a stakeholder some time ago about this, regarding this issue, where they were compromised, and this stakeholder of ours received an email from this vendor, and it looked legitimate, it looked real, and it had some legit information in there regarding some recent work that was done, so it was very up to date, very believable. And at the end of the day, the person that compromised the vendor had sent an email over to our stakeholder and was like, hey, here's your invoice for the services. We've changed the account number, we've changed the routing number, we've had some, whatever the case may be, send payment here, okay? And our stakeholder did so, and then a week or two went by, the vendor called the stakeholder and said, hey, where's that payment at? We haven't received payment yet. And it didn't take them long to figure out that there was an issue within the vendor's environment there with an email compromise. So my point here is that even when you're dealing with your vendors or reputable people that you work with quite a bit, make sure you validate those emails. And I get back to email security again, but be cognizant, be aware. And if you have some questions, if you do receive something that says we've changed accounts or we've changed invoices, call them directly, call your vendor directly, and make sure you get someone on the phone and verify that first before you do make any changes.
And not at the phone number that they've provided
Correct.
in there.
Yeah, exactly.
In the email.
Yeah.
Go look elsewhere to a different source. Yes.
But you gotta keep apprised of those vendors you work with, and they need to hold the same security requirements and resiliency requirements that you have and their end, so that because you have that relationship, you're connected through email, you may be connected through some other services, but you want to make sure you're working with your vendors and developing plans there.
And really, too, like with us, just even 2 years ago, we have to have an error and omissions policy, hovering over our agency and all of our producers. Well, now recently, carriers are saying, hey, we need you to have $1 to $2 million in cyber liability. So a lot of this is now being forced upon, contractually, because most people aren't going to be at a summit like this and are educated on cyber and want to go home and say, I'm going to go spend more money on cyber insurance now. So a lot of the time it's being forced upon you, but it's actually a good thing. So it's also good to ask some of the third-party vendors that you work with, hey, do you guys have a cyber policy in place? In the event that our customers are impacted, is there restitution for us through your means? And then obviously if not, you can piggyback on your policy and take advantage of it that way. So Todd again said it again, the email is nuts. Those are called, if I'm not mistaken, it's called phishing attacks. And all that is covered because, your employees are, unknowingly going through with those emails and, like you said, updating account and routing information, and maybe you're out $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. That is all recoverable through a, robust policy that was put together for you guys.
Great tips. You know what you call an attack through a phone? It's not a joke, actually. That comes through the phone. If that's email is phishing, it's smishing. So, because like SMS.
Doesn't sound real, does it?
It doesn't, but it's a real thing. Okay.
I love it. I love it when I get a text from Mandy saying, go buy a bunch of Amazon gift cards.
I know.
for
She
me."
hasn't done it yet. I keep hoping one day she's going to buy Amazon gift cards for me. But okay, really, we have about 2 minutes for a question. Are there any questions in the room from folks? One question.
All right, appreciate everybody on the panel with the helpful information. My question is about small businesses that utilize a lot of service as a software systems like Monday or Calendly or things like that. How can we protect our information when we know that everything cybersecurity is up to them? Is there anything extra we can do if we're primarily using more service as a software system?
These are vendors you're speaking of?
Yes.
Yes.
Vendors.
So you want to have a vendor management plan. All right. We offer, CISA provides. We have some workshops and some cyber assessments that speak to external dependency management vendors. But you want to look at your service level agreements with them, right? You want to go through those with a fine-tooth comb. You want your executives and your folks, your policy advisors, but you also want your IT professionals in the room when you're kind of drafting up these service level agreements. So you put those resiliency requirements in there, because at the end of the day, it is kind of out of your hands, right? There's nothing, if something happens on their end, are they required or bound by law within your contract to contact you? Regardless of what's happening, would they contact you and say, we're having a cyber incident? Do they provide any sort of support to assist you if their service or application causes an issue in your environment? So those are some things you want to look at. I mean, it's a tough scenario. It's a very fickle area there dealing with these third parties. But external dependency management is what that is a crucial part of keeping those threats away and having. It all comes back to policy and doctrine. You have to have a policy that says thou shall. And you will do these things. That it pipes down to your cybersecurity professionals and your IT staff, and then they're going to create the documentation and the doctrine that follows that kind of outlines the standard operating procedures or any of those guidelines related to how you're managing those third parties. Because at the end of the day, it's out of your control, right? Once that service level agreement's signed, and business transactions start, it's a little late at that point. So
yeah. I think the main question, and you'll need to talk to counsel about this, is I would ask about the data and what they're doing with it. Where is it being held? Right. How long are they holding it? Is it in country? Is it out of country? Is it encrypted? What are the policies around that? Because at the end of the day, a lot of it really, it's around the data and what protections are they using. Ask about their cloud providers. Ask about the cert, because all of these products are in the cloud. What are they using? Which cloud? What are they using? Who are they partnering with? All of those are the sort of questions. Counsel can help with that. Any sort of risk assessment can help. But at the end of the day, it's back to the data, and I would ask about what they're doing with your data.
What?
It depends. For businesses, it depends. If you're a regulated industry, then there are specific compliance requirements for that certain software providers are going to have to follow. Obviously, government have to follow certain standards. One thing you can do, although you're not required to use them, is we have a program called TexRamp. It's a risk authorization and management program where we've certified thousands of cloud products and services to say that they meet certain standards. And so, again, you aren't required to use those products, but it could be a great place to start. We have them listed on our website, and you could go back and check and see if that's something that might be useful. FedRAMP is a similar thing as well for the federal government. Thank you.
Let's give this panel a round of applause. If you guys will hold your seat for a few minutes, we're going to do a really quick stage change and prepare for our guest speaker.